Okay, so part 2 of Sermon on the Mount. Last week we started with the Beatitudes, explaining that the Beatitudes were blessings, deep, hardcore blessings that Jesus was giving on the people he was preaching to. And essentially, freaking out the audience big time. Because the blessings that we are being put out were going to the weak and the people who would not necessarily be blessed. Back in those times, the power was whoever had the money, whoever appeared, stress on that, appeared to be religious and holy. Jesus comes along and says, nope. What? Okay, so Jesus just turns this whole thing upside down and tells people, no, the blessings are going to come on the humble, the weak, the selfless, not the selfish. And these kind of words are boring straight into the Pharisees' hearts because they know that it's them he's talking about. So let's get going here with part 2. Salt and light. So first of all, you take a look at the first part. You are the salt of the earth, Jesus is telling the people. But if the salt loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? It's no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled underfoot. For us here, that little paragraph doesn't make a lot of sense. So we're going to put it into the context of the time. Salt at this time was incredibly important. 2 purposes. 1, for flavoring. It gave flavoring to food, and that's what they're going to be referring to also in here. More importantly, this is the only way people at this time had to preserve their food. There was no refrigeration, so this was the only way to preserve the food. So what Jesus is referring to here, when he talks to somebody, he says, you are the salt. You are the one who's going to go out and season people. You are the one that's going to carry the word to other people and give them this flavor of the gospel, this new preaching. Oh, cool. Us? Like the regular people, the nobodies? Yes. Not the guys with the big fancy outfits? No. Everybody can and should do this. Then also, with the second meaning of this too, with the salt preserving, again, one of the things that we as Christians have is we have our salvation that preserves us. It gives us life eternal. So by putting the salt on people, by passing the salt on to people, you're giving people the preservation, the opportunity to live in eternal life. And if you don't do it, it's useless. You'll notice it in a lot of Jesus' preachings as we go through this. Whether it's a fig tree that doesn't produce fruit, if it's a fig tree that doesn't produce fruit, they hack it down, into the fire it goes. Okay? So Jesus has given all of us gifts and talents for us to use. He wants us to use them, and there's all kinds of parables and stories about what happens if we don't. In the second part, you are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on a stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. A few complicated things here that need a little bit of clarification, but light is constantly used in equating with Jesus. I love light, especially here in Rexdale. A lot of people talk about Rexdale as being this dark black hole. I hate that. Light can change darkness. I like to look at what we're doing here in the Neighbourhood Connections Church as one of those old-fashioned kerosene lamps. You know the one with the knob on it? You turn up the wick a little bit, and you get a little bit of light. You turn it up more, and there's more light. People think, and people will sit there, but I'm just one person. How can I drive the darkness out? I was going to go upstairs to see if I could find a birthday candle, but I'm missing a bunch of leaders this morning. I didn't get the opportunity to do it. Because what I wanted to show you was a birthday candle is an inconsequential source of light, right? Now, what I wanted to do, though, is I wanted to turn all the lights out here and light that one candle. It doesn't cast a ton of light, but it does allow things to be seen. So don't ever sit there and go, it's just me, I have no light to cast. Everybody has a light to cast, and when we are together, 2 lights, 3 lights, let me tell you, when somebody puts all my birthday candles on the cake, and the fire department arrives, that wasn't a joke, Sherry, that was true.
The real fire out.
The more we light these little lights, the more it will. Okay. Now what? Okay. This is nothing, right? Okay. Joel, you're going to be my light man. Turn up the light, Joel. Now that's nothing, right? Okay. Now watch this. Kill all the lights. Now look at that. That's pretty cool. That casts off quite a bit of light for one little candle. Now, if Sherry gets one, okay, and somebody over at this table gets one, it's going to cast off an amazing amount of light. So don't ever disparage yourself that you can't do anything. I don't know what I'd do without Dorothy. She's amazing. So the light is important, that we go out into the world and we cast that light. I will warn you about one thing, though. I want you to look at that last line. And we're going to address this in a minute, though. That they may see your good deeds. There's a big thing about this. You do not do good deeds for the sake of doing good deeds. There are too many people, there's actually some people, some denominations, that believe you can earn your way into heaven by doing good deeds. Christians do good deeds, but that is because of a change of heart. It's very much like this. You walk into a jewelry store, there's a $20,000 Rolex on the desk. The non-Christian or the person who does good deeds because they're conscious sits there and looks at the Rolex going, a Christian doesn't even think about that. Their heart has changed. They say to the clerk, you left this Rolex on the desk. There's a big difference. And we're going to notice this in a minute when we start looking at some of the commandments and where Jesus goes with some of his teaching. So salt and light. You want to be salty and you want to be bright. Now, fulfillment of the law, he's got everybody's attention. And as a former teacher, I love the way he does this. He doesn't do anything complicated. He does things very simply, and in a lot of cases, he really smacks people in the head and gets their attention. It's like, what? He's turning things totally upside down and getting people to think. Do not think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have not come to abolish them. So he's not coming to get rid of the 10 Commandments. Okay, so it's not going to wipe this all out, which is what some of the erroneous thinking was. But to fulfill them. really, I tell you, until heaven and earth disappear, not the smallest letter, not the least stroke of a pen, will by any means disappear from the law until everything is accomplished. The law is a law, it's stuck. Not going anywhere. That's why it's written in stone. Okay? There's no whiteout. There's no delete button on those. Okay? They're locked into stone. Now, he's got your attention. Here he comes with the smack up the side of the head. Like, whoa. Therefore, anyone who sets aside one of the least of these commands and teaches others accordingly will be called least in the kingdom of heaven. But whoever practices and teaches these commands will be called great in the kingdom of heaven. He nails you with two things here. If you do one, if you break one command, you've broken them all. What? What are you doing? That's kind of harsh. Not really. His whole teaching is a sin is a sin. It's very much like somebody says, well, you know something? I'm only a little bit pregnant. You are or you aren't. You sin or you don't. What's it matter if you sin one of them or all of them? And he's getting your attention here because he's going to go in and he's going to really play with people's heads in a few minutes. Plus he does a second part of this. If you lead somebody astray, that's no good. Okay? Don't lead anybody astray. So he nails you twice. For I tell you, unless your righteousness surpasses that of the Pharisees and the teachers of the law, you will certainly not enter the kingdom of heaven. We've talked about this before. He's got a real problem with Pharisees. Pharisees are incredibly legalist, nitpickers, and they just make life miserable for people who are trying to be, good, holy people. But he doesn't care. He zings them like, left, right, and center. Because they are the big problem. They're teaching incorrectly. So what is the problem with the law? Why does Jesus have to come? Somebody once asked me, I was doing a discipleship session with a new believer. I love working with new believers because they whip out these great questions that just like, and it makes you learn. If God is all-knowing, why would he give the people the 10 Commandments knowing that they couldn't keep them? Now that was from a new believer. And I thought, wow, that is amazing. Beautiful question, and that's what we're going to look at right now. What is the problem with the law that makes it so difficult to follow? Now, first of all, if you read the Bible, God tries to make things simple. We're not the brightest bunch going. We're not the sharpest pencils in the pack sometimes, so God tries to keep things simple for us. He gives you 10 simple commandments. Don't do this, don't do that, don't do that. Should be straightforward. But like Roger says all the time, he says, religion really isn't a problem until man gets his little finger in the pot and starts stirring it around. It's us that mess things up. And sure enough, that's what happens. Take simple 10 commandments and look what we get. The 10 commandments grew into the Talmud, which are 613 laws written down to clarify the 10 simple ones. Excuse me, am I missing something? That's like putting on 12 pair of sunglasses so your vision is clearer. What are you talking about? And this is where we get into the problem with things like when Jesus and the disciples are walking through the grain field on the Sabbath. They pick some kernels of wheat, they rub them together, and they eat them. The Pharisees have a hissy fit because they are working on the Sabbath. They are harvesting. Will you give me a break? You're setting people up for frustration, to feel negative, and just be hardcore sinners. You're not doing anything to make them better people. It's making it much more difficult. An oral law called the Mishnah further explained things, increasing the complexity, and these were open to human interpretation. This is how the Pharisees became a sore point. So what we've got here, folks, is we've got 10 simple ones, expand to 613, and then, just to make things fun, we have some oral ones. They're not written down, so you can't even look at them to check them. Only the Pharisees can come up and say, you're doing something wrong. You haven't even got an opportunity to check. Okay, they just make these rules up on the fly. So this gets progressively more complicated. We see this all through history. I just lost his name. The guy who first translated the Bible into English. Quick, help me.
James.
No, the guy, Tyndale. No, it's not wasn't Tyndale. Anyhow, it'll come to me in a minute. The Bible was always written in Latin to keep it mysterious and under control of the church. Who? No, after him. He decided to come along and translate. This is what happens when you get old. All of a sudden it goes. No, we'll get it in a minute. Anyhow, the thing is, he translates the Bible into English so that it's accessible to the common man. And you know what they do? The church decides to reward him by tying him to a post and setting him on fire. Wycliffe, thank you, John Wycliffe, that's it, thank you. Yeah, the church is very protective, so you burn people. Okay, these guys are no different. The Jews had to make an animal sacrifice, shedding of blood, to have their sins forgiven. We don't have to do that anymore. And the thing is that you had to do this all the time, whether it was a bird, whether it was a lamb, whatever, you had to do a sin. Now the question comes to mind, if God is omniscient, he knows everything, why would he give people the 10 Commandments if he knew that they wouldn't be able to obey them? Any ideas? According to the Bible, the law reveals who I am. I am a sinner. I cannot keep these laws. I need a Savior to forgive my sins. This Savior is Christ, who is my only hope. When I trust Christ and His grace takes over and builds a relationship between God and me, I am saved and am His child forever. Basically, God has seen this happen before. He does something, the people mess up, they don't listen. You even remember, Moses is going up the mountain. He's going up to meet God. What's his brother Aaron doing? He's down at the bottom, melting gold and making idols. He hasn't got to the top of the mountain yet. And these guys are already messing up. God knows what people are like. So he has to give them something. So he gives them the commandments. Say, look guys, I'm giving you this so you can focus and see that you cannot keep laws. You need something stronger. You need something more powerful. You need Jesus Christ. So when Jesus, because if Jesus showed up without the 10 Commandments before him, they wouldn't accept him either. They have to see the impossibility of trying to keep laws. And as a result, we now can see and appreciate Jesus. And the thing to look at this with this is too is laws are based in our minds. We think about stuff. Should I do 120 clicks on the 401? If it's coming from your heart, you just don't. And that's the difference. Laws come from your mind. Jesus changes your heart. It's an interesting, I'm going to share something with you too, a little bit of a revelation I've had recently. You know, we mess up on our journey. And you know, in your prayer time, you say to Jesus, look, I am going to try harder. That's wrong. You cannot try harder to be a better person. Now people go, what? You can try harder to improve your heart by staying in the Word, by praying more, and being around Christians more. You cannot consciously try to be a better person. If your problem, let's say, is you swear a lot, you don't sit down and think as you're whacking with a hammer, I will not swear, I will not swear, I will not swear, I will not swear. Probably you'll whack your finger and, oh, I just swore. The control is going to come from here. All right? And don't fool yourself with that. If you're having a problem with a particular sin, it's this that has to change so that this can be in control. So more prayer, more focusing on the Bible, and when you start to focus on the Bible, you'll start to see passages that go, whoa, that guy had problems with this. I am too. Okay? All right, here we go. Flipping things upside down. Whenever I preach on the 10 Commandments, I always love to go through this. All right, guys, why don't you be honest? How many commandments have you broken? And y'all ask, okay? 10? Nobody puts up their hand. Nobody puts up their hand. They're banking on this one here to at least get a 9, or the adultery one to maybe get themselves an 8. But Jesus knows how slippery we are, and he's going to nail you so you can't slip away. And he does that with this one. You have heard it was said to people long ago, you shall not murder, and anyone who murders will be subject to judgment. Shoot! I'm safe. Haven't whacked anybody, so far. Yet. I stress yet. And everybody's sitting there, okay, good, I got this one. So, no. Look what he turns around and does next. But, as soon as you get the but, you know there's going to be trouble. But, I tell you that anyone who is angry with a brother or sister will be subject to judgment. What? That's not fair. That just took that one away. Because I'm guilty of that one. A lot of times. And then anyone who says to a brother or sister, Raka, worthless, empty-headed, foolish, is answerable to the court. And anyone who says, you fool, will be in danger of the fire of hell. Anybody that's driven a car, you... imagine anybody that's driven a car is... yeah, you idiot! The thing that's beautiful about this, Jesus talks a lot about exteriors. The outside appearances of people, keeping up the appearance of being holy. He wants the inside. He wants the inside. So some of you unfortunately probably experienced this. You're stupid, you're ugly, you're fat, you're worthless. On the exterior, you look like you've got it together and there's nothing wrong with you. But inside, you are crushed and destroyed as a person. So what Jesus is saying here is the physical death. Okay? Just like with salvation. The physical death is not important. The physical death is not important. Just like the physical death of being murdered is not important. What are you doing to people inside? Nowadays with cyberbullying, we even have kids who are killing themselves because of the incessant bombarding of you're worthless, you're a slut, you're fat, you're ugly, you're this, you're that, bam, bam, bam. If I keep throwing piles of cow manure at you, you are eventually going to be saturated with stench. You cannot get away with it. The same thing with cyberbullying or any kind of bullying. It's going to cripple you. It will kill the person inside. So this teaching is very revolutionary. Very revolutionary. This is where James 3 comes in. Watch your mouth. Watch what you say. You say something to a person, a friend of yours, you're an idiot. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean that. Don't go there. You meant it. You didn't mean to say it. There wasn't a cosmic ventriloquist that made you say that just popped out of nowhere. It was working inside you. You have to take ownership of that. Therefore, if you're offering your gift at the altar and there remember that your brother or sister has something against you, leave your gift there in front of the altar. First go and be reconciled to them, then come and offer your gift. Do you take communion with a clear heart? Have you reconciled with somebody that you've had bad words with? You should be. Settle matters quickly with your adversary who's taking you to court. Do it while you're still together on the way, or your adversary may hand you over to the judge, and the judge may hand you over to the officer, and you may be thrown in prison. Truly, I tell you, you will not get out until you have paid the last penny. Talk to the person that you're having a problem with. We talk about this with forgiveness all the time. Don't hold it in. It's not good for you. It's not good for the other person. So your discussion questions today, and I'd like you to be honest with this. Why is Jesus so strict when he says that if you break one law, you've broken them all? Secondly, until you heard Jesus' definition of murder, how did you think you were doing with keeping the 10 Commandments? Interesting question. Have you, and you don't have to do this around the table, you can just go around. Have you broken all 10? How many have you broken? And be honest, because there's another one coming next week that's going to catch a lot of us. So be careful, because you can sit there and fake it amongst the people at your table, but the bottom line is he knows upstairs what you're doing. So be honest. How many have you broken? Go through them. Do you know them all first? You ever tell your parents where to go? You ever say nasty to your parents? Back in the Old Testament, you would have been killed. You're lucky they let you off now. They just take away your cell phone. So there's 2 questions that you could possibly focus on, or anything else that might come up with the discussion. You have a great week. God bless. You guys from Texas have a safe journey. Enjoy your time here. Come back and see us when you can. Have a great one. God bless.